I can do an autopsy in an hour and a half. Complicated multi-gunshot wound, it may take 5 hours. Without John, a simple autopsy may take 5 hours. Therefore, it is a situation that is absolutely, I'm committed in my...
So you want to take John up 10%, is that what
Yes.
you're telling us?
Yes.
Okay, and who else do you want to give a raise to in addition to John?
The next person is...
And I need to keep you on schedule, because if you get to the end of this thing,
Okay, the next person is Rick Walters.
get to the end of this thing and we haven't discussed your salary yet, and you get zero
Well,
next year.
you can give me $250,000. I would appreciate it. The next person is Rick Walters. He's got more than 25 years of experience. His impeccable trust, judgment, work ethic.
Who are we talking about? I'm sorry.
Rick Walters. I asked him a 5% raise.
Okay, I'm sorry.
A 5% raise for Rick Walters is an extraordinarily important person in getting information, helping me getting information from the scene, and also helps the office in all aspects. He goes well beyond, that is what he does. He's an absolute work ethic, and he certainly recommend. And these are the only 2 persons I recommend. But that's all I can say. Any questions you want to talk? Anybody wants to ask any questions about John Williams for 10% and then Rick Walters 5%? If you have any questions, ask me. Okay. The next is the purchase services. We have an epidemic of heroin abuse. Every other week, we get a heroin death. 18, 19, 20-year-old person comes with heroin. We have an epidemic of heroin abuse, and many people, we send it to all these people. We send it to forensic toxicology lab, and that costs, each time we send a case, costs about almost $200. And the Starr County Crime Lab is not doing as much as they used to do. They only do ethanol testing, and we are forced to send everything to the toxicology lab. So that itself will cost us a lot of money. It may cost about $27,000. So I think, Amanda, you want to add something which I missed?
No, I think you're fine. I can answer questions. I think the biggest piece is the toxicology, because with the crime lab cutting their services, we used to rely on them to be able to do screens on our urine tests for drugs of abuse. And in the event that they find something, then we can send it off for additional testing. And they're not even doing the screens anymore. So we've kind of lost that middle step. And we're kind of at an all or nothing. It's either don't test it or send it all to the comprehensive lab, and that's where your additional funding comes in, because we lost that step where they were able to screen those for us.
There's no one in Ohio that does it? You have to send it out, if I'm reading this right, it says it's out of state?
It is, it's in Indiana. They're the Ohio State Patrol Crime Lab, or they do it, but their prices, and I didn't bring that with me, but I do have it. They base it on what they find. So they'll screen it for you, and then when they find something, then they, if they find 3 drugs or 6 drugs or something like that, then that's how they price it out to you. I think it's like 1 to 3 is one price, but if they find something over that, then they start charging you more. Also, AIT is a forensic certified lab, and their toxicologists not only consult with us on the phone at any time, we can call them, but they also are willing to testify in court for us as well, at no additional cost.
The state won't?
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would testify. But I think the consulting is where our concern is. And that's who we've used. It's just kind of one of the vendors that we've always used. They don't raise their prices. They're very good with us. It's kind of new to us because I've been there several years and we've always used the crime lab. So when everything changed, we kind of looked at different avenues. And I don't think the prices at OSP were much different. It might have been like $30 a case.
I will say one more thing about John.
No, don't need to.
No need to?
Doesn't
Okay.
mean we're gonna give you the raise, but I just wanna get to the essence of this thing, and then
Yeah.
you can come back and talk to them at the end of it rather than at the beginning,
Okay.
because now we're down to 13 minutes.
Yes, okay.
Haven't even looked at your budget yet.
I understand.
Chris, you wanna take us through the budget? I want somebody to take us through the budget. Go ahead.
Can I have Amanda take it through the budget?
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting for somebody to take us through the budget
Okay.
at this point.
Well, the budget summary is basically what Dr. Murthy just went through. I couldn't get the Excel to print off, so I put it on a Word. So that's basically pretty much, he does add in here some of the justification for the increased raises that he's requesting, as well as the addition of a part-time records clerk. We do have a lot of requests, from different agencies. One of the problems with us filling those requests for reports is that they usually come in a week after somebody's passed away, and we're not even done with the case yet, so they just kind of backlog. It would be nice to have possibly a criminal justice student or somebody with a medical.
What is the cost of an additional part-time clerk?
Part-time for the year, not starting them to the middle of the year, would be approximately $9,377.
With benefits?
No benefits. Part-time, 20 hours a week.
Part-time, oh, this is gonna be a part-time.
Like I said, ideally, a student that could come in, where they can make their own schedule, possibly 4 hours a day, or,
So this person, by the way, you're projecting would be a start mid-year.
correct. And that's on the spreadsheet. I have them down as April 1st, based on when the budgets are released.
And that amount was how much, 9,000?
$9,377.
Is that 9,000 based on when the hire date is, or is that truly?
No, that's the higher date.
That's the hire date.
Yeah.
So it really would probably be 18 if it's a full year?
This is at 75%, so
Okay.
somebody would have to do the
So an
math.
additional 25%?
Correct, yes.
And just explain to me, and I guess just a big question again I asked, the coroner, last year your budget was 778,000. Is that how much they spent by the way, of the appropriated budget?
$778,000.
Okay, and this year's 857, so you have an increase of about $80,000 ballpark. What is the,
97,979.
Yeah, so some of the,
whatever, okay.
one of the big differences is Dr. Miller's salary. When you guys allocated that to us last year, it was only for the second, 2/3 of the year,
Yeah.
I believe is what was given to us. Same with the benefits that, correlate with that. The salary doesn't change. The only changes in the salary that are in the request are the request for the records clerk, the raises that Dr. Murthy talked about, and then that brief period where we would have to hire somebody for training.
Question about the personnel. Do you pay any personnel out of the lab fund?
We do not. We never have. We know we can. And one of the reasons we try not to is because we just don't know what money's coming in.
Okay.
And we don't, it's hard to rely on that. We know we have a chunk. We did have a payout this year for a retirement.
So how long has Walters been on the payroll?
25 years.
Well,
He's just-
he's not on the personnel. I mean, I can't find some of their employees.
Richard Waters is.
No,
he's
on this one. I cannot find him.
On, yeah,
Then there was some change during the year that dropped him off of that.
I'm sorry, which one were you looking at?
Well, you don't have this.
Oh,
I'm looking at.
okay, so
So I'm
He
not
had-
finding him.
So anything put a
I'm
corner on
not
that.
finding.
Yes.
Did he have some kind of status change
page?
during the
Well,
year?
and-
She's got it.
I don't know about his status sheet.
Same with family
but,
court.
Our chief investigator for 20 years, Harry Campbell, retired.
Okay.
And then he was brought back as our investigator, and Rick Walters was promoted to chief investigator.
Yeah.
That's why.
And
He's
Okay.
promoted to a different position.
yeah, so it probably looks, and that was all done at the end of the year.
So is Harry back then
Correct.
as a part-time? or-
No, full-time.
But he retired and came back.
Yes.
And his payout, his sick and vacation were paid out of the lab fund.
Of the lab fund, more, almost $16,000,
It was
$17,000.
over $18,000. And also, Rick Walters is eligible to retire in 2014, and so is our transcriptionist. And with the changes with PERS, it might be in their benefit to retire. And those funds, sick time, vacation payout, will also come out of the lab fund in the event they choose to retire this year.
And then I note that last year you gave John Williams, who you're asking for a 10% raise this year, you gave
Yes.
him an 8% last year.
Yes. But still, he is the lowest paid employee.
For that?
Huh?
What were you, how did you pay the 8% when we gave you 2% for raises?
I think,
And why did you choose to give him 8% when we gave you 2% for raises, I guess is a more pointed question for you.
Last time I wanted 10%. Finally, I agreed for a 8% raise and he got it. Now I want 10% raise because he's the lowest paid employee of the office and his services are invaluable. He is available Christmas Day, Labor Day, Mother's Day, Labor Day, Divorce Day, Gay Day. Every day he is available. And umpteen number of Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, I worked with John. And John works with me when I want him, and John works with Miller.
My question is, we gave you, I think, 2% for raises across the board, and you gave him an 8% pay raise. Where did the 8% come from?
from another account,
So you transferred during the year.
correct.
Can we stop that from happening?
Budget transfers come to the board.
I think the
Yeah.
purpose of us going through this whole procedure, by the way, is determining, what level of pay raises we want to have out there for, employees. I mean, I think that we're willing to make exceptions and so forth, but only at the request.
Well, I do
Other
know
people.
that Dr. Murthy did speak to several different people throughout the county about giving other employees different percent raises. And those were conversations that he had with other elected officials, and I'm not sure if he spoke with any commissioners or not, but he did not take that decision lightly. I just want to, and those funding transfers do go through different departments also. That's not something that we're just doing on an office level. So, and no, it wasn't an issue. And it does say why, you're transferring money.
We need a flag from here on out.
We need
The
a system in
transfers
place.
of budget from other to salary. We've been very cognizant over the last 3 years of the non-encumbered expenses, and I thought we really cut those down. And some other things that were happening, but now we need to flag those budget transfers because I'm going to say it, it's a trick that officials use. They always budget for more than what they usually need, and then throughout the year, when things have settled down, they'll transfer from one account to the other, and it just kind of slides through the system.
What I would like to do this year, by the way, is to appropriate for salaries for a fixed amount and have a method in place, in the budgetary process to hold it to that amount. I think we need to. How many months were you here last year?
6.
Not enough.
Six.
Less than 5.
Not
Okay,
enough.
less than 6.
Well, I was going to give you 10 demerits, but I'll only give you 5 demerits. In place.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, but it's things
So,
that you learn as you
we just have to do that. We just have to do that. And when Dr. Murthy discussed giving him 8%, what was your response?
Dr.
Not knowing
Murthy
what it
came
was.
in
Yeah.
to see me, and as I have said to everyone that has come to see me, we budgeted 2%, but an official has the right to come in and ask. They have to justify their need, but we will fund at 2%.
So the fund is only 2%.
It's 2%, what we said all along,
That they're talking about last year's budget.
Okay, the last year.
Was 2%.
No, it's gonna be
and it's going to be 2% again
this
this year.
Correct. But then there was also the piece in there about if you're requesting over 2%, provide a justification.
Justification.
Which is,
Yeah, I would
right.
say that to anybody about any account that they have, not just salaries. You can't just come in and say, I want $1 million, and then we just sit back and say, oh, okay, we'll give it to you. No, we want justification. I mean, that doesn't mean you're going to get it just
I see,
because
I
you
see.
justify it, but at least it gives you the venue, it gives
Yes.
you the platform to talk to us about what your need is
This will-
and why.
That's exactly what I
Right.
did.
Right.
Take it in.
I told you the
into
truth.
Consideration.
And that's what I firmly believe. With my judgment and experience, I told you what I said. That's all.
We're talking about the 8% last year, we're not talking about what you requested for this year.
Still, he is the lowest paid employee.
I understand that, I appreciate that. But we budgeted you at 2%, and you gave the guy 8% anyways.
Yes.
That's what so I appreciate you coming in and asking us and discussing it in accordance with the budgetary process, but I guess I, don't appreciate you're giving the guy 8% when we told you to give him 2%.
I think that,
Again,
Yeah.
I thought I had I am the coroner. I know him. I know his value. Therefore, I gave it to him. That's a part of my justification. Last time and this time is the same. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I'm just suggesting that you don't have unlimited discretion in order to do that, and I guess that we should understand between us that you don't have unlimited discretion to do that. You only have so many dollars to work with, and those are the dollars that the commissioners, which is our statutory job to do, to appropriate to everybody. And then when we appropriate it, you have to live within those numbers, unless there is a change to it in the course of the year.
I believe, as a sovereign elected official, I have the legal authority to take the money from the lab fund, give it to the people who are involved with the lab.
Did
But-
you use lab fund money for it, or did you use general fund money for it?
it wasn't lab fund money.
Okay, if you want to use lab fund money with it, I don't think I have any discretion over that.
Then-
If you want to use, when you have general fund money, though, I do have authority.
Okay,
over it.
I'm here clear myself. If there is no, if you, the commissioners, strongly feel he should only get 2% raise, then I will use the lab fund to give him what I want. Am I? I'm not here.
That's correct, that's within budgetary discretion, yes.
I am not here.
Yeah.
Again, my relationship with the commissioners is I am thankful to you, humble to you, grateful to you for making this job as nice as possible. I am not here to flexing my muscles as an elected official. I work for the people and you work for the people, and with humility, I am grateful to you, thankful to you, to the people for electing me as the coroner. And if you strongly feel that John only should get 2% and Rick only should get 2%, then I will use the lab fund to do that. Is that okay with you?
Which is permissible and within your prerogative. We're talking about the 8%, though last year when you did it, you didn't use the lab fund to do it.
Correct. The general fund that was allocated to us, it provided us money to give him an 8% raise. And that was one of the employees that Dr. Murthy, from the beginning, said he wanted to give a larger raise. And I think that even though the 2% was what was allocated, he still felt that John deserved the 8%. And that's why he went ahead and did it. So I understand that you guys allocate the money, but after Dr. Murthy had the conversations with several people, I believe he felt that he was entitled to still give John that raise, even though it came out of the general fund. So, I mean, I don't know what else.
I mean, I'm here to.
Again, I don't know what several people we talked to. I don't think Commissioner Creighton
Yeah,
gave him
and I just
that
had this
impression.
conversation
I know I
with
certainly
Murthy.
wouldn't have given him that impression. I don't think Commissioner Regular did. Again, you are the coroner, and we respect that, but we have to, we are charged with the obligation of determining the overall, general fund appropriations for the county and for the various departments and elected officials. We're charged with, and we feel that it's our duty and obligation to respond to the taxpayers that pay for all of our operations and so forth. And we believe that they want us to be, fiscally conservative in what county employees receive. We are willing to make exceptions when justified. And again, we learn a little bit every year. We've already learned today, by the way, that next year or this year's budget, we want controls or flags with regard to that, so there can't be budgetary transfers for purposes of changing the amount. I think the other thing that we have to do, and that is when we make a statement, and we will do the same thing, I think we did good last year, was the first time we did that, telling people what we were giving them and what we're not giving them. when we do it, if we're going to give Mr. Williams, for example, a raise larger than 2%, I think this document should indicate that. And that way, everybody has explicit directions. And to the extent that you want to give him more money, by the way, and you want to give it to him out of your lab fund, that is within your discretion. And it's up to other people, such as Mr. Olson or Mr. Bodis or anyone else in the public to ask you, why you gave an employee a raise greater than 2%.
I distinctly remember last time I had a conversation with Alan Auditor. I wanted input from him on one elected official to another. Alan, what do you think? And he said basically give a 2% of whatever it is, what the commissioners recommend. But in exceptional cases which you consider, then you can give more. And that's what he said. And I followed his guidelines to a certain extent. And that's why I gave John 8%. And this time I did not talk with Alan. I talked to the commissioners for guidelines, which she gave it to me. And I respect it, I admire, and I will follow it. So the bottom line is the commissioners are going to give 2% raise to all the people in the office, and I have the authority to give more from the lab fund, and that's the story.
And
Yes.
you are the one that has to justify that to the public.
Okay.
Was the other part of my conversation.
Yes, you are
with
absolutely right.
That it is, we fund it 2%. I just want
Yes,
to make sure we're
I
clear.
understand.
We fund it 2%. You're the one that has to justify
Yes.
why you do what you do.
I understand.